Today, my friends, we invite you to come into this circle of loss, but also come into this circle of compassion. Come into this circle of memory, and come into this circle of love. Friends, today we gather together to celebrate the life of Josh Rogers, a man who is no longer with us in flesh, but whose spirit dwells with us in our minds and our hearts, and in the way his deeds shaped our common world. Our loss and the hurt that we feel are reaching out to one another. They do not close the circle, but rather open it up to all of those that want to gather, all of those that wish to support and to combine your hearts with ours. We are gathered into the sacred circle of our humanity through the one fate that shapes our lives and through the grief that death always brings. Now, there are so many ways to describe Josh within the world, as he impacted so many of us within his professional work and the ways that he shaped our community for the better. We remember Josh as a visionary leader, a renewer of communities, a seeker of justice, a companion along the journey, and a cheerleader for Macon. But while his professional accolades are long, and we could be here for a very long time talking about them all, Josh was more than his professional role. As my friend Jake Hall said to me today, the secret to Josh's professional success was that he was a dad that wanted to make Macon better for Ellie and for Jack. Josh was an Eagle Scout who continued to serve with the Scouts and inspired a new generation. He was father of Ellie and Jack, two kids who made his face light up with joy when he picked them up after school and whose arms would open up wide, ready to receive their hugs. He was a son who called his parents every Sunday afternoon. He was a friend willing to sit around and challenge concepts within the world, question things, raise doubts, and wonder together. He was also a runner who wore these amazingly ridiculous running shorts with multiple versions of fluorescent colors. If y'all have seen him in those, you know how wonderful Josh was within who he was in the world. But he was also a husband and a partner to Megan, two hearts that were intertwined into one. So today, when we are weary and in need of strength, we remember Josh. When we are lost and sick at heart, when we have difficult decisions to be able to make, when we have joy that we crave to share, when we have achievements that are based on his, we remember Josh. For as long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him and continue to tell his stories. So we begin today with a tribute from his wife, with a poem that Josh and Megan had read at their wedding, and the one that ended each card that they wrote to one another. It's within your bulletin if you'd like to be able to look and to read along, as it's an E.E. Cummings poem, so it's one of those that actually has beautiful ways of being able to describe it just through the way that it's written. It's I carry your heart. I carry your heart with me. I carry it in my heart. I am never without it, for anywhere I go, you go, my dear, and whatever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. I fear no fate, for you are my fate. I want no world, for beautiful you are my world, my true. And it's you, are whatever a moon has always meant, and whatever a sun will always sing is you. Here is the deepest secret nobody knows. Here is the root of the root and the bud of the bud and the sky of a tree called life. which grows higher than soul can hope or mind can hide. And this is the wonder that's keeping the stars apart. I carry your heart. I carry it in my heart. Y'all, there are so many beautiful and wonderful faces in this room today. So many people who knew Josh, whose lives have been better because of him being a part of it. And if I knew how to sing, I would sing from Wicked at this moment and be able to say how we were better because of him. But no, if we opened up this microphone to all of the folks that would want to share stories, we'd be here for days. Because that's who Josh was. Somebody that created stories within the world and that made your life better. So today we'll hear from a few folks, but we'll be reminded that in the midst of our collective grief, we can be a circle of storytellers that keeps on sharing the ways that Josh transformed each of us and every room that he entered. We're going to start off with 3 speakers being able to share reflections on a life well lived. Dr. Kirby Gotze, Chancellor of Mercer University, will begin our reflections, followed by Catherine Dennis and Ethiel Garlington. As we listen to these stories and reflect on Josh's life, may God's grace surround us all. And in pain, may we find comfort. In sorrow, may we find hope. And in death, may we be reminded that we're not alone.
Megan, Jack, Julie, parents and grandparents, staff members of NewTown, Mr. Mayor, this broad gathering of citizens, I rise before you this morning, still overcome, still burdened, like so many of you, with a deep sense of grief, brokenhearted for the stunning loss. The death of Josh Rogers is deeply personal. I find some solace in my clear awareness that his life, even cut short, was profoundly consequential. As we huddle together here in this historic hall, a place that was like another home for Josh, we stumble for words, and I confess I will never live past the presence of Josh Rogers. His past will always be a part of my present. The shocking toll of his death reminds us that cities usually are born and they flourish because of the ingenuity and the creative leadership of a few men and women. I find it difficult to celebrate in a moment like this, but we will always be aware that Josh Rogers provided much of the imagination and energy that drove our city. He corralled leaders and ordinary citizens to join him in transforming this place. Like the ways of the Swedish Nobel Prize winner, Josh did the very difficult very quickly. The impossible took a little longer. Josh belongs to a small cadre of leaders across our city who in 10 years made us define more by hope than by defeat. But to be clear, Josh would never be pointing to himself as the chief arbiter of change. He was a master collaborator. His way was always to be pointing to his staff or to the board or to the Peyton Anderson Foundation, or to the mayor. He would be saluting the partners who stepped up with new ideas, giving new life to outworn buildings downtown. He would turn the light toward people who were opening newer storefronts and building new lofts and condos. The landscape of downtown is changing every day, and Josh Rogers has been the voice and the champion and often the inspiration of much of this change. Not an ordinary leader, Josh was brilliant and caring, creative, and always ready to tackle what's next. He loved our city, and he believed in its promise. NewTown has become a model which other cities look toward trying to figure out how to make it happen in their places. Our word should be to encourage them, but also acknowledge that another Josh Rogers likely does not exist. You see, Josh Rogers surely will be succeeded. I suspect Josh Rogers will never be replaced. One of his most important legacies is that he gathered around him a team of professionals and empowered them to become knowledgeable and independent and creative in supporting and providing tools for the difference makers who are shaping a new future for Macon. Because of that prescient wisdom, the transformative work of NewTown will move forward, and every step forward will be a lasting tribute to this giant of a leader. I knew Josh Rogers up close and personal. With all his bent toward adventure, always looking toward the next horizon, he was a deeply spiritual person. He was awed by the sacredness of the world, awed by the sacredness of helping people to realize their dream. He sensed within his soul that lifting people up, never putting people down, is the most sacred act of all. Though only 42 years old, Josh Rogers was a man for the ages. In these brief years, our community has been graced and made better by his presence. He lived with a joyful confidence that we can make good things happen here. Before I go, please allow me 2 personal words this morning. My first personal word is to the staff of NewTown. Josh, without ever saying it, prepared you for this moment. Along with his vision and his passion and his bright mind and incorrigible will, he empowered you to take responsibility. His inclusive style of leading enables you to take initiative in assuring that without missing a step, NewTown will flourish. Your continuing good work will seal the legacy of his leadership. Your high calling sometimes will be leavened with deep sadness, yet you must carry on. The burden will be a little greater, but if you're tempted, put down your pen, pick it up. You have a future to create. My second personal word is to Megan and to Jack and to Ellie and to the family and friends gathered around you. I offer you 2 promises this morning. You will not soon escape the cry of absence. The absence of Josh weighs heavily and will continue to weigh heavily upon you for time to come, because the loss is far more than can be fathomed in days or weeks. You and I know there are no shortcuts through the valley of loss. You must make and you will make that painful journey. But my first promise to you is that you will not be alone. While this unbelievable flood of disappointment and hurt seems to be ripping you apart, tether your hope to the promise that you will be buoyed by the boundless devotion of this community. Parents and grandparents will steady your hand. Friends who are like family love you without condition. They will be with you when the sun sets and when the morning breaks. My second promise is this. As you walk toward a new dawning, which right now seems so elusive, I promise you one day this cry of absence will be transformed into a new and lasting sense of joy and gratitude for the gift of Josh in your life. Megan, in my frequent conversations with Josh, he smiled the broadest. His eyes brightened the most when he talked of you and Jack and Ellie. You, Megan, were Josh's anchor, his center of gravity, the gladness at the end of every day. Jack and Ellie, you will carry Josh's presence, his laughter, his fun and adventure, his energy and passion, and his unbridled love with you the rest of your life. The two of you may be Josh's most important gift to the world. And to all of us who gather here this morning, undone by this loss, more confused than understanding, our hearts can only begin to mend in the rising realization that Josh has helped reignite the flame of progress in Macon. Our highest tribute to Josh, I believe, is not to lose heart, to carry on completing this good work. There are new ideas yet to conceive, new possibilities yet to imagine. For all of us this morning, there's a season to mourn. But Josh, with his rapturous smile, would want to remind us not to linger there too long. Even though we are shackled with grief, let us remember this. Josh was a profound gift to us, to all of us. He was full of dreams for our city and our downtown. Our highest tribute, yours and mine, will be to make sure his dreams come true.
Good morning. I'm Catherine Dennis, and I'm president of the Josh Rogers Fan Club. I know you're all thinking that's your role, but it's mine. I told him that several times a month for over 15 years. It was impossible not to be a raving fan of Josh Rogers. His smile, his brilliance, his sense of humor, his vision, his enthusiasm, the list is long. Josh could have lived and worked his magic anywhere, but he chose Macon, and for that, we are all thankful and greatly blessed. He was encouraging, enthusiastic. When tough opportunities came along, he'd say, "We can do that. You can do that, right?" Josh invested in people and relationships. Your presence here today is a testament to that. Over the years, I had the pleasure of introducing Josh to many groups and individuals. They were usually visiting Macon to learn from us, or we were at a statewide or national conference extolling Macon's greatness. Someone would always start telling me how wonderful Josh was. And I'd agree, And then I'd say, very forcefully, "You can't steal him." And sometimes I'd add, "And if you try, I'll hunt you down." This past week, many of those same leaders have called or written to share what Josh meant for them. How did he have time to help all of those people? Our friend from Thomasville, Alston Watt, captured Josh well. She wrote, "Josh was always unselfishly generous with his time, knowledge, and expertise." Josh would be the first to tell you that it was our community working together that made that Macon magic happen. Of course he would. He was the best collaborator and team builder. Josh built an incredible team at NewTown Macon, that's for sure. They worked hard and had fun while doing it. He loved you all and sang your praises at every opportunity. The partnership he and Alex Morrison built between Newtown and the Urban Development Authority is an unprecedented public and private partnership. He claimed that this one Macon way of collaboration was our secret sauce that culminated in the well-deserved recognition in May of Macon as the Great American Main Street. Josh was the Greater Macon Chamber of Commerce's Citizen of the Year in 2023 because of his many professional accomplishments, but also because of his volunteer leadership. His connection to the Rotary Club of Macon was particularly strong. He served on the board twice, and he was the perpetual chair of the club's annual workday for rebuilding Macon. And he, Alex, and Ethiel were integral in changing our club from the old club meaning of old people back to the meaning of the first Rotary Club established in Macon. And Josh loved that he could be a Rotarian after receiving a Rotary International scholarship to study at the University of York. The Rotary connection to Josh that I particularly appreciate is his embodiment of the Rotary motto, service above self. We all know Josh was fabulous, but he'd be the first to tell you he wasn't perfect. I especially loved when he would share stories about the one job for which he wasn't well suited and really didn't excel, waiter. However, I'm sure that I would have loved having Josh as my waiter. It would have been fun. Who cares if he couldn't remember my order? Josh was the best friend. The first time I remember meeting Josh was when he worked at the city. It was shortly thereafter that I became president of the Josh Rogers Fan Club. While our professional friendship may have started with me as the mentor and Josh as the mentee, it changed fairly quickly. Eventually, I may have counted on his wisdom more than he counted on mine. But the best thing that happened by far was that Josh became a dear friend, a younger brother for whom I always wished, someone with whom I shared belly laughs and scary and sad moments. Josh checked on me almost every Friday as I battled cancer and underwent treatment this past year. As I've said, he was a great encourager, and he also made every single person, he would bring them to a meeting and make everybody wear a mask when he came in. He was also a good caretaker. Josh was so much fun. Brown and I have so many memories of great times with Megan, Josh, and friends. Dinners out, cocktails at the Monkey's Paw, singing the 12 Days of Christmas, time at the beach, pizza with the children. Today wouldn't feel right if I didn't share a few of my favorite stories with you. Early in Josh's tenure at Historic Macon Foundation, the Community Foundation launched the Night Neighborhood Challenge to support the implementation of the College Hill Corridor Plan. And Josh had some great ideas. The first you've read about if you've been reading the heartwarming and beautiful tributes to Josh on social media. He was awarded a grant to start the Magnolia Soapbox Derby. That first year, the Community Foundation's board chair happened by at the start of the race. She reported that it looked like someone's parents had gone out of town and their teenage boys had decided to have a lot of fun. Well, look at it today. It draws huge crowds, has several race divisions, and a STEM component for local high school students. Josh had vision, but y'all, sometimes he needed a little help to ensure that the implementation happened. Another grant that he sponsored and that we both loved was an art vending machine. The Community Foundation board was a little skeptical, but as soon as I said, Josh Rogers thinks it's a great idea. They were all on board. I shared that with Josh, and he said, wow, my board was skeptical too. But I told them you were on board, and they said, okay. Well, the epilogue to that is that we used a picture of the vending machine that he had got the idea from, and in a slideshow. And a little bit later that week, the president of Knight Foundation received a cease and desist order. It wasn't a happy moment for either one of us. And much to our chagrin, the vending machine never came to fruition. But as recently as last year, we were still wishing for it. It was really cool, right? More recently, I was working hard on a tough problem. The answer I came up with wasn't what the other person wanted to hear. After a lot of back and forth, that person said, Catherine, you're a bull in a china shop. I was embarrassed and my feelings were hurt. So I called Josh to cheer me up. I told him the story. He laughed and assured me I wasn't. But then he said, even if you are, what's the matter with that? You get things done and tell people what they need to hear, even when they don't want to hear it. He was the great encourager. About a week later at lunch with friends, he nonchalantly dropped a wrapped gift in front of me. I opened it and burst out laughing. It was a vintage game, The Bull in the China Shop. He searched Etsy and bought it for me. Classic Josh. It sits on a bookshelf in my direct line of sight, right below the pictures of my children, and it's up there with other plaques. It's my favorite. It was hilarious. One of the perks of being president of Josh's fan club is that I got to know his precious family. And what do you know? I became president of their fan club too. Libby and Mark, you raised an exceptional son. I'm positive you have so many similar wonderful stories, and I can't wait to hear them. You instilled his great love of the outdoors, and he loved you both dearly. He treasured time with you. Noah, siblings shape who we are. Life is just more fun with brothers and sisters. You meant the world to Josh. He told me so many times. Jack and Ellie, your dad loved you more than anything. He was so proud of you, and he told me stories about you every time we talked. His favorite thing to do was spend time with you. When he turned 40, instead of having a big party, he wanted to take you to Italy with your mom. Y'all had so much fun that the next year you went to Spain and Ireland. And your trips in the RV to the Jersey Shore, those were legendary. He was always excited to tell me about the places you saw and what you did on your way home. Megan, Josh was who he was because of you. You empowered him. You enabled him to accomplish so much. You graciously shared him with all of us. You laughed at and loved him for his foibles. You were his partner, his soulmate, and his one true love. We are all fortunate to have shared life with Josh. He left this world better than he found it, and I will be forever grateful for the amazing, magnificent, and remarkable Josh Rogers.
Good morning. My name is Ethiel Garlington, and this is the hardest thing I've ever done. No, that's not true. This is the second hardest thing I've ever done. The hardest thing I've ever done was following Josh as executive director of Historic Macon. 10 years ago, Josh entrusted me, a colleague he barely knew, to continue the legacy that he had built. And since then, I have always wanted to make him proud. His mentorship enriched my career, and his friendship has been instrumental in helping me and my family create this amazingly rich life in this beautiful city with the most authentic community of friends. He changed the trajectory of my life. He's pushed me to be the version of myself that he knew I could be. Josh was always able to see what others couldn't. He was a masterful visionary, and he saw the best in all of us. Josh changed your life too. In hundreds of tangible ways, Josh has been a force in creating a better life for all of us. All of us. I'm going to share some memories and insights on my friend, but nothing I'll share is salacious or untoward. Nothing will shock you. But to be fair, I did not have the honor of meeting Slosh, which was his college nickname. I'm not hiding anything. It's just that the Josh you knew and loved was the same Josh that sat with friends around the campfire. He was his true self and shared every side of himself. But I'd like to spotlight his less serious side, his silly side. So let's kick it off with a tiny sample of what he loved and what we loved about him. He loved bubble baths and napping on the back porch. He loved playing video games with Jack. He loved playing school with Ellie. He loved Saturday mornings watching Jack and Ellie play soccer. He loved going to concerts and theater, and he loved singing along. He loved the Muppets Christmas Carol on Christmas Eve. He loved The Princess Bride and The Goonies. He loved watching CBS Sunday mornings. That was his church. Josh loved fountain pens and writing in cursive. Who still writes in cursive? And without telling Megan, he secretly treated himself to imported handmade scissors from Sheffield, England. And yes, they are as expensive as they sound. How did he have such refined taste? Josh loved food. He loved eating it, and he loved making it. I think the maddest I ever saw was one time when he made a custard, but he left it on the stove too long and the eggs cooked. He was furious. Josh loved luxury travel. He was at his best when he used his power of persuasion to justify memorable trips. Earlier this year, a small group of us got to go to Little St. Simon's Island, which was the bougiest weekend vacation any of us had ever experienced. And after, when I expressed a hint of buyer's remorse, he shut it down. And he just reminded me how amazing it was. And of course, he was right. And this is so hard to say out loud, but the crux of his argument so many times was simple. He would say, "You only live once." Josh loved Jekyll Island, especially with Megan and his family. It was his happy place. Those are his words. Josh loved complimenting people and giving credit whenever due. He was the best hype man. He could make you blush introducing you to someone. Josh also loved listening to you. He was curious in a way that made him so engaging to talk to. When he met people, he had a way of getting to know them deeply and quickly, and he did not suffer fools. He did not appreciate if you weren't being real. He did not tolerate phoning. He was his authentic self, and he expected you to reciprocate. Josh loved laughing and making other people laugh. His jokes were sometimes crude or irreverent, but always witty, and I loved laughing with him. His laugh was contagious because it was so expressive and ridiculous. I think he got that from his dad. Josh was brilliant and confident. I bet he was correct 86% of the time. But he spoke with such authority that you never doubted the other 14%. He was handy and resourceful, but when the task was beyond his capabilities, he reached out to his network and found the expert. But he didn't just hire someone to teach them, or he didn't just hire them to do the job. He hired them to teach him, and he worked side by side with them. People shared their talents because they knew Josh did the same. He gave it all away. Just after graduating from Mercer, Josh bought a fixer-upper on Cole Street in Bells Hill with his best friend Will. Who buys a house with their best friend straight out of college? Together they fixed it up. Josh even had plumbing help from Kathy's dad, Megan's grandpa, that involved a raw sewage incident in the crawl space. For years, the house, affectionately called Shack Shack, was the house of countless parties and beer Olympics. And with time, it became the house where Josh proposed to Megan and where they brought Jack home from the hospital. Josh was beloved around the country and the world. He was a celebrity. This summer, we had the opportunity to travel to Ireland so he could teach the National Trust of Ireland how they could use revolving techniques to reuse historic places. But the best part of that trip for all of us was visiting one of Megan's favorite places with our families. Later, he said that was one of the best days of his life. But guess what? He lived so fully that he had 1,000 of those best days. Josh loved the Okefenokee Swamp. Josh, Noah, and their dad, Pops, made an annual pilgrimage to the swamp. The swamp had this powerful effect on Josh that only he had the capacity to verbalize, and he would wax poetic about that impact on him. I'm sure I made fun of him at the time, but I'm so grateful that he shared the swamp with me. And he really did love sleeping outdoors. It didn't matter if it was Jack's Cub Scouts or with friends or on a park bench. A couple of years ago, Josh and I made our way with Seth and Andy onto Ossabaw Island. And as the proud owner of a minivan, I was the driver. I always picked up Josh first. And as he hopped in the front seat of the van, he immediately shed his shirt and cracked a beer. After all, we were going to camp on a private island. Imagine the look on Seth's face when we picked him up at City Hall and Josh is hanging out the passenger window, shirtless, at noon with a beer. How lucky we all are that he stitched us together. We are bonded forever because of him. We have grieved together as a large community, but also in smaller circles that he fostered. The Slonikers welcomed Josh with open arms to their family, and that's despite the fact that Megan fell hard for the guy who didn't care anything about sports. Very few people on this planet care less about sports than Josh. Megan's parents, Coach and Kathy, have talked a lot this week about how they never really worried about Megan after she found Josh. They knew their daughter was loved, and that's really what parents want for their children most of all. And every summer when Megan's family descended on the Jersey Shore, Josh loved it. He loved it because they loved it, and he loved them. Finally, I want to speak directly to Pops, Phoebe, Jack, Ellie, Noah, and Megan. Pops, he loved telling tales about you. And I think it's because he wanted people to tell tales about him like that one day. And we will. When we go back to the swamp every year for the rest of our lives, we will tell those tales. Phoebe, I know he's been prioritizing time with you because he knew your health was in doubt. I'm glad he acknowledged that, and true to him, he acted on it. Jack and Ellie, he loved being your dad more than anything. You made him so proud and so happy. You two made him better. And all of us see him in you. I have lots and lots to share with both of you, but I'm going to save it for family dinner. Is that okay? Okay. Noah, you two were the best of brothers. You two were the best of friends. I'm here for a big hug anytime. And don't make me regret this, but call me, and I might even get weird with you. And Megan, a lot of people in this room only know you as Josh's spouse. They are here today because of their connection to your husband. Sometimes I know it was hard to share him with us, but he saved the best of himself for you, which is so hard to believe since he gave the rest of us so much. But I want you to know that you are his equal. Today we are up here talking about how Josh was our hero, but remember, he was your partner, and you matched him more than any of us could. You are our hero too. Bertie, Conway, Michelle, and I love you, and we will do anything for you. And I guarantee that everyone in this chapel feels the same, even if they are meeting you for the first time today. Now I need to talk to everyone else. Every single one of you have your own unique and powerful memories of Josh, and it's a damn shame that we don't get to hear those today. So I have an idea. Jot down your Josh stories. It will not be easy, but you will find some peace. And more importantly, you will have those stories forever. Don't be surprised when I ask to hear your stories the next time I see you. Be prepared. Time moves forward. As visceral as this is today, at this moment, we know that we can't stay in this tortured state forever. And as much as we think we have to, or even can't ever imagine dragging ourselves out of these dark places, we cannot stay here. But we also can't forget. We can't lose these pieces of ourselves that Josh gave us. We just cannot. So please, I challenge you to write it down. Write it down. I'm so glad that's over. And as it turns out, once again, Josh proved to me, maybe for the last time, that I can do hard things. We all can. And he would insist that we keep doing hard things. So join me in committing to living like Josh lived his life. That's how I intend to hang on to my friend, to keep making him proud.
As we've been hearing so much about Josh and hearing about his impact as a dad in particular as well, both Ellie and Jack wanted to have a moment to be able to share a piece of their story with y'all as well. And so we'll start off by being able to hear a song that was a song that Josh and Ellie would often sing to and dance to. Song that held them together, that bonded this daughter and her dad. So we invite you to be able to sing along and to listen and to see these beautiful images of Josh.
Thank you, Ellie. That was a wonderful song. Ethiel, you showed me a side of Josh I've never experienced. I think I still would have called him for advice. Of course, none of us know how long we've been given, but Josh provided an example of how to make the most of whatever time we have. It's difficult for me to imagine anyone living a fuller, richer, and more meaningful life than Josh Rogers. He attended fine universities here and in England, universities that cultivated his love for history and for preservation. He made lifelong friends. He met, fell in love with, and ultimately married an amazing human being. He and Megan together brought two wonderful, special children into the world, Ellie and Jack. As I look around the auditorium today, I see people for whom Josh created life-empowering opportunities, opportunities that without Josh never would have in all likelihood have existed. Josh seized the opportunity to put his passion for history and preservation to work, to advance the city he'd come to love. Josh loved the architecture of our historic buildings and the stories behind these magnificent structures. Someone writing a review of Mercer recently commented that some of our buildings are old and outdated. I wish Josh could have educated this poor person. If they're outdated, it's only because we can't build them today. Josh loved the uniqueness of Macon. Several years ago, a friend from Columbus called me. It was a courtesy call. He was calling to tell me that he was going to hire Josh away from us and bring him to Columbus. I just laughed. I asked him, I said, have you talked to Josh? And he said, no. I said, well, do me a favor when you do. Offer him a big raise, would you? Because I've been trying to get him to take a raise at NewTown unsuccessfully, and maybe you'll help me convince him he's worth more money. Josh loved Macon. There wasn't much going on downtown when Josh arrived in 2001. NewTown was just getting started. When I arrived a few years later, it sometimes felt like for every step forward, there were at least 2 steps back in those early days. But Josh had the gift of vision. He could see things that others couldn't. As a student here at Mercer, Josh could see downtown's potential. As student body president, he established a trolley system to bring students downtown. There wasn't a lot to do at that time, but Josh wanted them to see. He wanted them to see what he saw. Josh never envisioned Macon as some ordinary post-industrial southern city on a path towards revival. His vision was never for Macon to be the next Greenville or Chattanooga or Asheville. He dreamed of a Macon that would become the very best version of Macon. No ordinary city Josh recently shared that we have the opportunity to be a truly world-class city, maybe the only place in the world that's revitalized cooperatively. America's most integrated revitalization. Long-term, that's what I would hope for the most, he said. I hope we can be a place that demonstrates how people can get along, and the way to be successful is to build across lines that divide. That was Josh's dream for this community. Megan, Jack, Ellie, the entire family. Our presence today truly evidences our love for Josh and you, and our commitment to support you in this challenging time. I think our presence actually evidences even more than just that. Yesterday, in my own personal celebration of the remarkable life of Josh Rogers, I went downtown. I ordered a beer at Just Tapped. I sat on one of the outdoor tables, and I thought about how much Josh has meant to me personally. I've known and worked with Josh for most of my nearly 20 years here at Mercer, whether it was during his leadership of College Hill, his transformation of historic Macon, and his amazing work building NewTown into a revitalization juggernaut. I came to rely on Josh's intelligence, his values, his good judgment, despite pulling off his shirt at City Hall to have a beer. I relied on his good judgment. I would call Josh frequently for advice. When I received news that he'd passed, the first call I made was to Josh. I couldn't believe it. Sitting at Just Tapped, I also thought about how far we've come as a community. All you have to do is look around. When you do, as I did yesterday, you can hardly help but think of Josh, his vision, his magnificent brain, his compassion. Surely he made us better, and he's shown us a path to being even better yet. So, rather than concluding today with sorrow over our loss, as natural as that is and would be, I think our family member, our colleague, our friend, Josh Rogers, would prefer that as we join together here, we double down our collective commitment to seeing that his vision of Macon as a truly world-class city is one day achieved. Thanks be to God for the remarkable life and legacy of Josh Rogers.
I invite you to join with me in prayer and a blessing by John O'Donohue. Let us pray together. Though we need to weep your loss, you dwell in that safe place in our hearts where no storm or night or pain can reach you. Let us not look for you only in memory, where we would grow lonely without you. For you would want us to find you in the present, beside us when beauty brightens, when kindness glows and music echoes eternal tones. When orchids brighten the earth, and the darkest winter has turned to spring, may this dark grief flower with hope in every heart that loves. May you continue to inspire us to enter each day with a generous heart, to serve the call of courage and love until we see your beautiful face again in that land where there is no separation, where all tears will be wiped from our mind, and where we will never lose you again. Amen. Well, just as Ellie and Josh had a song, so did Jack and Josh. And Jack's song is a song that he and his dad were supposed to go see in concert, but unfortunately, a hurricane had other plans and ruined their trip. But this is a song that Josh said would be Jack's walkout song. Y'all know walkout songs, right? So it's the song you walk out to in order to go and to hit that grand slam at the end of the game. And this is Jack and Josh's song together. So we hope that you will again be encouraged and be able to live in the light and the love of these images around us. As we were watching that one earlier, we felt like it would have been even more appropriate if he had fallen at the end, because that would have been just Josh. So y'all, it's been a great day, a wonderful day to be able to share memories, a wonderful day to be able to laugh with our friends, a wonderful day to be able to be reminded of the gift of life. And that's what we get to do from this point, as we get to go keep out living life in the world. So I invite you today, pick up the piece of what Josh started and carry it forward. You don't have to do it all. None of us can do it all. But we can each together do our part. We can each do what we can be inspired to do, what we are passionate about, and to keep the legacy going of what Josh started here with us. We're going to invite you to be able to join us, if you'd like, with a reception and a time to be able to greet the family next door. I'll be taking them out on the side and joining together over in the Newton Chapel. Know that this is not the only time to be able to come and greet them, though. And so we know that we're going to continue to support Jack and Ellie and Megan for the next weeks and months and years to come. And so if you need to go ahead and go back to work, as I know many of y'all have come up and said, I'm coming from work and I'm going to be going back to work, know that you can still find time. Today is not the only day to be able to share your love and your light and the ways that Josh has impacted you. But as we do go forth, I pray that you'll go with this blessing. Blessed are those who give meaning to our lives. Holy and precious is the example that they leave behind. We pray that our sorrows diminish as we recall their strength, and may their wisdom protect us and help us to live. Let our grief be transformed into tenderness for those who are still with us. And as Ellie Rogers would say, may you all have a cat-tastic day.